ready for chaos.
Whew, we're in a different world now.
That situation kind of makes me happy. There are a lot of people in this country who have guns. You're going to get sick no matter what.
In 3. Okay, welcome to the Ami and Mike Show. What do you think of that name? Huh?
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. Part of the reason I wanted to do this was obviously everyone and their mother is starting a podcast. So it's the thing to do. But also I feel like there's never been a time in history, at least in our lifetime, where there's been this like collective need for group therapy, like this big vent, because I just feel like there's been so many issues over the course of our adult lives so far where people like talk about it in the abstract, you know, like climate change or big issues or what people seem to be passionate or care about, but it's so rarely a thing that's not in the news, but in our real lives. Everything is always just in the news in the abstract. And I feel like this is the first time it's something that is actually here affecting us for an extended basis, and not just this abstract idea that people can get heated about for no reason because it doesn't really affect them.
Yeah. On a certain level, I think everyone's is like ready for it because it's a manifestation of how we felt on the inside for a long time, where when the government's like, you should stay home and do nothing for a while by ourselves, everyone's like, okay, I'm ready for that. That makes sense. I can do that.
What do you mean?
I'm just going to stay home and do nothing and just go on Facebook.
Like people were craving a break?
It's like this, I think everyone has felt panicked. Not everyone, but a lot of people have felt almost panicked and distrustful and ready for an emergency or like ready for chaos for the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, so you're saying people have had
now it's like, here's your reason to like act on all those impulses. And
so there's
like, I'm ready.
In this artificial angst that everyone's been feeling, and this is just the best way to apply it. So you think people are getting off on this a little bit?
No, not getting off, but I think people are comfortable with it more quickly than you might think. You would think the government, they would say like, stay home and don't leave. And it would take weeks for people to like listen to them. And within like a day or two, everyone's like, all right.
Doesn't it shock you that like of all the hysteria that's ever been reported on, everyone seems to have just responded to this like it's, I wonder what's different about this. I could have easily seen this gone the other way, where it was like the same reports, the same kind of things, but everyone's like, did you hear about that? Like, what? Do you know anybody? I don't know. Yeah. Like, it must be that they're...
like a virus is something that's hard to politicize, although it's happening. I think everyone instinctually understands that you're going to get sick no matter what.
But people seem to respond to this even when it was still unseen. I mean, I know there's like images from Italy, but in the States, for big cities, I know New York took a minute, but it just seemed like everybody was not shaking hands. Like, it's so rare that people respond this immediately to some sort of news cycle hysteria. Well, unless it's like 9/11, like that happens, it's happening right then and there. And even then, like by the next week, people were very sad, and obviously it was devastating, but the day-to-day life kind of resumed fairly quickly. This is not that. This is crazy.
Yeah, like the city shut down for what, like a couple of days after 9/11?
Yeah, and people were like shell-shocked. And then you went back to school or life or work, and you were like, whew, we're in a different world now. But were we really in a different world? Like, yes, TSA and stuff. But this is like, this is dystopian. It feels fiction. It's freaking me out.
It does feel like I have a friend who around Perm was saying, we're going to jump through a portal on Perm, and no one understood what he was talking about. But with her, it does feel like there was like before last week and after last week. And like when I think of things I did last Friday, I did an open house last week to show apartments. I met with 50 strangers.
Yeah.
In a small space. It feels like that happened 6 months ago.
Yes. And also when the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast, and things were slowing down there and shutting down too. And us on the West Coast, we're still doing our things, but looking with like, ooh, that's bizarre. And then it was here.
Even within New York, while the city was shut down, Crown Heights wasn't really shut down. All the schools were open last week for the most part. 770 didn't close until yesterday, I think, or just today. And
anyway, it's been a lot to take in, and there was a part of me, I told you that like, I was like, am I tripping here? Like I've had moments like that every couple of hours or days where I'm like driving and I'll be like, it's like the headlines sound so fiction. They sound so reminiscent of dystopian, like, but bad dystopian flicks, movies, student films that don't seem believable. because it's such a
Yeah.
big jump. And it one thing that like it gave me pause to reflect on historically. You wonder how certain cultural things just shifted so suddenly in societies that seemed relatable to ours, you know? And then you
Mhm.
realize, wow, all it would take is something like this for everyone to just stop shaking hands. And that's like,
Right.
we don't do that right now. It's never happened like that before. The whole thing feels so
Yeah.
unprecedented in every way.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost didn't know we were capable of it. It's kind of nice to know that the world is capable of changing in an instant, changing what they think is possible in an instant.
Yeah.
This is like on the bad end of the spectrum, but I don't see why it couldn't happen on the good end of the spectrum equally.
Yes. What I get
You
worried
know,
about is when
like
there's
maybe
such,
everyone should get healthcare.
right. I get concerned about the fact that with such a huge crisis and such a fundamental shift in our way of life, even for a temporary period, people get used to things that are not normative, like expansions of government, like quarantines and government controls and things that I'm not saying aren't necessary, but I
Yeah.
get really worried that like, it's like, all right, so that's what life is like in a totalitarian police
Right.
state. Okay. And like, I get how
Right.
complacency is the real enemy. Like, don't you think about when we take for granted being in America and being free and doing whatever we want. And then you hear about like Cuba, Russia, you hear about these places in the world that once upon a time people are like, oh, when we grew up, we just didn't go out after 8 o'clock. We weren't allowed to do it. And you're like, but
Yeah.
how, and now I get how that is even a feasible thing that people just say, oh, that's just what the rules are. Like they accept this paternalism from the government that, you know, is
Right.
is really spooky that could just happen, that people just become complacent and accepting of a new norm.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That situation kind of makes me happy. There are a lot of people in this country who have guns.
Oh my God, it's so weird. I have liberal friends of mine who are like, I'm getting a gun. It's like all that
Yeah.
theoretical, no one should have gun. Dude. And then
Yeah.
we're getting guns. Like the second it's real,
I,
it's like all the false fake
yeah.
problems go away and it becomes like, okay,
Yeah.
what's really yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
I have
and
a
it,
friend who bought bear spray, which I thought was really smart.
you
You
mean
can really
to
immobilize somebody with bear spray.
use on human beings? He doesn't think bears are coming now
Yeah.
that the humans are
Yeah,
susceptible.
and it gives you like a 10-foot range or something. Yeah. I think it's illegal in New York, but
That's a good idea. I like that.
yeah.
But it's so
Not a
funny.
bad
I remember hearing Ben Shapiro on Piers Morgan all those years ago when he had that like infamous interview that like that put him on the map a little bit, where he's like talking about guns. Like, yeah, like and he
Mhm.
said, he's like, Ben, why do you need a gun? Who needs a gun? And he goes like, he said to him, I believe that it is entirely possible within the next 50 years that United States becomes a tyrannical government. And like, that's the most laughable thing in the world at the time. It's so
Yeah.
laughable. He's a crazy right winger. And it becomes this thing where
Yeah.
like that, no idea sounds nutty right now.
Yeah.
Nothing like that where you could just
Could
write
you
it off.
imagine could you imagine if like a month or two ago Trump had done what the experts are saying he should have done, which is saying, I am officially shutting down schools and restaurants and bars and everyone stay in their house. It would have been like mania. Like, it's happening. He's doing it. We were right.
Who would have
Like,
said
he
that?
couldn't have done it. It would have been nuts.
Yeah, exactly. The thought of it. But also it's weird. Like he's getting all this flack and I understand it. But again, I don't think he's getting flack on policy per se, unless I'm missing something. It's more that like, it's all fun and games when it's just politics and the shtick of
Yeah.
Trump and all the things he does in the games and stuff. But at a
Yeah.
moment where there's a global pandemic and you really need someone to be precise and a symbol of calmness and
Or
a unit, like someone who's a uniting figure, he fails
yeah.
so hard at that he has to make everything political and like still braggadocious. And that really got to me when he was speaking. He was like, we're building a website, it's better than other websites that have been built. It's like nobody
Yeah.
he's like, much better than past websites. Like I didn't
Yeah.
like the Obama website, and I thought obviously all that was legit at the time to criticize it, but this was like, nobody's feeling better about the fact that the Obama website was crappy
Yeah.
for healthcare. Like
Yeah.
nobody cares. Even
It
your best
sounds so
supporters.
it sounds so silly because who cares what the president says to, but it's really is calming and nice when he can even just empathize even a little bit, which it doesn't seem like he's capable of doing.
In a moment that was truly apolitical, where even his worst enemies are not sure. Maybe people who hate him would hate him unconditionally. However, in a moment that's so rarely apolitical, you have an opportunity to show that you don't have to make this about politics or bolsterous, braggadociousness. You can step up to the plate and say, guys, and you can be that person. And I rarely think a president has to be that person. There's only a few times on occasion, like a 9/11, a massive crisis. It doesn't happen in certain presidencies over 8 years. You rarely have to be that person. Some people look to the presidency as this rabbinical spiritual leader, and I really don't. But in this moment, the government is the one entity that has the power to do something and make people and actually affect people's behavior. And he just
did you think he had the ability to do that? Did you think he was just holding back this whole time?
No, I didn't think he had the ability to do that. I didn't necessarily I wouldn't put my money on it. Oh, he would be so great in that situation. You just wait and see. I just didn't think those opportunities to have to do that and meet the call are very, very rare. It just as a matter of fact, but we happen to be in one. And I'm disappointed that it's such a softball. It's such an easy one.
It was an opportunity.
He's able to get out of traps, like crazy traps in terms of manipulation and persuasion, like when he's in a corner by a media or in a debate. He really knows how to maneuver that, as everybody has seen. For some reason, no matter what he says, he's able to sort of get out of it that most politicians would crumble under and have been they're train wrecked by situations, scandals, all these things. He's able to maneuver out of them. And yet for softballs, saying white supremacists are bad, first thing out of your mouth, or saying David Duke, I disavow him. Not, I don't know who that is. Who's David Duke? What are we talking about? Or the softballs, just misses every time. Or refraining from criticizing a military family, who lost a kid in war, lost their child, even though they criticized him, even though you could say it's fair game. It's just leave that one alone and be and class it up. And I don't, he's not a classy guy, but it's just, even to me, it's just astounding that you can't take the softball.
I'm not shocked, but I hear what you're saying.
I'm not shocked.
He's a nice guy.
It's fantastic. Doing fantastic job. Better. We're really. I don't have. Wasn't it funny how in his address he said, "Dealing with the coronavirus." Choked up in the middle.
Oh, he has it. He probably has it.
Yeah.
I read somewhere, I forgot where it was, where it said he had to choose between the public health and the economy, and he screwed both of it. He screwed both of them up. He didn't save the economy, and he didn't save public health. And that's kind of can't really forgive that.
Well, it's super easy to sit here and just point on all the things hindsight 2020 that you're doing.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we get paid for.
Yeah, I know. That's what you do. And this is, look, I'm not even peddling this, but I know that there's chatter out there that this all seems really interestingly timed, that they've been trying to take down Donald Trump in every which way. And you're a conspiratorial mind, so I'm asking you about this. What do you think about that? That the idea that this is some kind of is the media and I'm not saying this in my opinion, but I'm curious because I know you and you like conspiracy theories, that this is some planned way because there's been SARS, there's been other pandemics in the past and under other presidencies, but Donald Trump, nothing has worked against him as far as his opposition at all. Yeah. And this seems to be kind of working in terms of perception as far as all the things he could talk about policy wise, like economy and state of the country and being great. This is really killing all those things, at least in the short term.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's deviant enough to do that. I do think though, and I based this on absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
China made a calculation and they said, if we release this thing, we'll have to deal with a lot of deaths on our own, but it'll crumble the rest of the world. I think we should do it. I think we should do it.
You spoke to China?
Yeah, I was on the phone with China's a dear friend.
Yeah.
I spoke to them. I have a source high in the government.
Right. What's the president's name?
Is this Xi Jinping? I've never said it out loud. Is that what it is?
I thought it was with the X, right? His name is President Xiu. Yeah. That's funny. I mean, I just the major counter to that obviously is there are real people getting sick, and I have friends who are doctors talking about the overwhelming, overwhelmed state of hospitals and what's going on and
they
elderly
recommend
and all
you just
that.
go to their home. If you need help and you know a doctor, don't go to the hospital, go to their home when they're off of work and just deal with them there, because the hospitals are just crazy right now.
That's what Mark said, huh?
Yeah.
Um,
Dr. Mark Mickley at
yes, shout out to our friends who are doctors. But like, no, those are the real facts on the ground. So that's what's really happening. So no, I don't think there's some grand conspiracy, but
and
it's just,
we'll
isn't it
share his
hilarious?
number in the show notes.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, let's just do quick intros for the two of us. Tell everybody a little about yourself, Michael. Tell the world about Michael Weber and what you're about, and I'll tell them what I'm about and why we started this podcast, because maybe this can be our intro.
Where do I start? I don't know. I've done a lot of things in
I got a better idea. I'm going to interrupt you. I will talk about you, and you will talk about me. It's much easier that way. I never like explaining myself and what I do. It feels, inherently self-indulgent. So for those of you listening, Michael Weber is an amazing guy. Beautiful, beautiful beard. He has a very interesting mind, very creative, very unique, both in terms of humor and in terms of ideas. He's had a lot of ideas cooking in his head for a very, very, very long time, and has struggled to figure out ways to execute them because they're so unique and different. So there's no real precedent for how to get them out into the world. So over the years, him and I have always been talking and chatting about ways he can get his cool ideas out into the world, whether it be through film, through writing. He's a very talented writer, and you should follow him on Biblical Convos on Instagram, because he's got some really cool takes on biblical stories there. And as I think right now, Michael's in an interesting place where his creativity is manifesting and finding its new ways to execute and show itself in the new technologies that we have on social media. He's got some cool film projects coming out, really, really interesting stuff. So definitely follow Michael Weber on Biblical Convos on Instagram, and all the other ventures he's going to be showcasing in the next few years. I can see a lot of big things for you. That's Michael Weber. He's also a dear friend of mine since high school. Even before high school, we were friends by association for a long time and tried to keep it that way. We really, really did, but eventually we became tight ourselves. Yes.
Thank you, Ami. We actually played basketball at one point together.
Yes. Believe it or not, Michael's one of the first people I called just to play basketball one-on-one. I'm not an athlete. This was already in college, but we were just home alone for a summer, needing to kill time, and we were available. So we settled for each other's company.
There was a terrible summer where everyone understood they needed to get internships.
And we didn't.
Before the summer started, and we did not understand that. We were just alone for a long, depressing college summer. That was terrible.
Yes. I have a distinct memory of me running on a treadmill next to you at the gym to try to kill time. And I was watching Bill O'Reilly on my treadmill. And you were like, what are you doing? Why do you waste your time with this? Who's laughing now? No. Anyway.
All my live dates have been canceled. So check me out on Instagram. Ami, where do I start with Ami? Ami, it's weird to say such nice things to your face, but I'll try. Ami has more raw talent than most people, than almost anybody I know. And over the years, he's been trying to hone his craft. He went to music school in Berkeley, and he's been a working professional. He figured out how to be a working professional musician over the last 10 or so years. And he separated himself from the pack and actually figured out a way to make money and do what he's great at for a living. And he raised a beautiful family in the meantime. He's still in the process of that, I believe. Although he talked to me about abandoning or running away or something like that.
Yeah. Once this is bigger.
And what if Ami only was able to share some of himself and be a little bit more vulnerable and trust his own creative instincts a little bit more, I think he could create something really, really beautiful and attract even a bigger audience. But for some reason he's afraid to do that. So maybe over the course of this podcast, we'll dive into that and figure that out, and get some real raw out of Ami.
I didn't know that we were doing judgment here. Was mine as judgmental as that? Maybe it was. Maybe inevitably it sounds that way. You didn't mention anything about impressions, first of all. Anything about comedy. Well, hello.
True. Besides being a musician, Ami's a very talented comedian. He has not gotten into stand-up nearly as much as he should have. Right. But the last week or so, or the last 2 weeks has been crazy. I actually got onto TikTok because Ami had a TikTok video that went straight up viral. He had like, what's it probably up to like 400,000 at this point?
The TikTok
And
one is
then,
like 500,000, and it got featured on Barstool Sports, which was a really
Barstool shared
fun day.
Instagram. It has
That was like in the millions.
over 1.5 million views.
Gary V. It was Gary V.
People are finally starting to notice Ami in a much bigger way than ever before for things that his family and friends knew he was able to do for his entire life. So it's been extremely exciting to watch from the sidelines.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
I've gotten a lot of nachas out of it.
I appreciate that, even though I made you say it. But I will say that as another part of the venture and in the interest of exploring new things and not just talking about them, as we all do so much of talk, and not enough action. This is something cool for the two of us to do, to actually try and put a podcast together with no theme and no direction, just the two of us talking about ideas, and hopefully people can relate to them and be able to find comfort in the things that we talk about. Because I think putting out conversations into the world where people can relate to what we're saying lets everybody know that we're not as different as we think, and we have a lot more that connects us. So in the meantime, we're going to wrap this one up, and Michael, I'll see you next time. Cue the music.
And like I do at the end of every episode, I'm going to light my beard on fire.
On fire, ferocious, here we go, the inferno. Ami and Mike show coming at you. Wow. All right, later, guards.